Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Theater of the Mind. I have an easy one for you today. Doesn't require a lot of work, and it's something that's easy to do, and it has great results as well. What is it? It's just simply imagining your life as you want it to be. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's imagining your life as you want it to be, and it's using your mind to do it. It's simple. One of my favorite techniques. It's definitely one of the things that I think has changed my life the most. Definitely one of the top things that I've done. There's some things that you can do to make it more powerful, and that's what we're going to talk about here. You already have like a few lists. We talked about this on day 2. So if you go back and do the day 2 exercise, if you haven't already, that exercise is going to give you a list of potential things that you can do for today's exercise, which this is an exercise that you should be doing like every day, but we'll talk about that in a minute. This is a specific exercise, and like I said here, it's more than just imagining something. So this is where you want to start. In the next slide, we're going to cover how to do it, but for now, we are just going to think about what you want to start visualizing. I recommend starting with any limiting beliefs that you have. These are the things that hold us back the most, and this is where I started as well. Any limiting beliefs, it could be anything that comes from your inner critic. It could be anything like you're not good enough to have something. It could be a limiting belief that maybe comes from your family as well, or it could just be something that you see as a repeating pattern in your life. Like sometimes I think maybe we make a bunch of money and then we lose it, right? That could be a limiting belief, even though it's not really a limiting belief, it kind of is, because there's probably something inside of you, and we need to reprogram your brain to allow you to hold on to money or to allow you to make more money, right? And so that's what I would think about here in this part of the slide. And it could be anything that makes you feel small as well. A lot of the things that I think hold us back are things that we kind of shy away from, things that make us want to kind of curl up in a little ball. So if there are any of those things in your life, that's what I would be thinking about with this exercise. It could also be something that's stopping you from taking action. So if there's something that is stopping you from taking action on a dream, or if there's something that's holding you back, that's one thing that you could focus on. Mind movies, what to do here. The process is more than just visualizing. As I said, you have to imagine what you want in great detail. And I have here like an example of picking a limiting belief, and you have to visualize yourself doing something you would do if the belief doesn't exist. So for example, maybe you believe that you can't talk in front of a group of people. You would need to visualize yourself talking in front of a group of people and doing a really good job. And you want to imagine this in as much detail as you possibly can. And I have here, you want to imagine what you're visualizing in 3 dimensions. The thing is when we visualize in our brain, sometimes we kind of visualize just a flat image. We don't visualize everything being in 3D. So one way to supercharge your visualizing is to kind of walk around the image or look around the image that you are seeing, look around the situation that you're in, and try to get as much detail as you possibly can. If you want to improve your ability to speak in public, maybe you picture yourself speaking on stage somewhere, but also make sure that you're going and sitting in the audience during the visualization. And picture yourself as someone who's in the audience and seeing you doing a good job. Then maybe move around the audience, move around the stage that you're speaking on. You really want to make it as lifelike as possible. You want to see it from as many different angles as possible as well. You really want to imagine as much detail as you can when you're doing the visualization. I like to visualize one single thing every single night, as I have here. So I like to visualize the same thing every single night, as I say here. I think it's a good idea to kind of pick one thing and stick with it for a long period of time. I think that's another trick with the visualization, is that I would pick a limiting belief and I would visualize it every single night, and I would like try to fix one thing. Again, I truly believe that when we fix our inner world, we fix our outer world. I've already talked about this. So I would like pick one thing and stick with it for a very long period of time. Even what I visualize every single night, and again, we're going to talk about this more in just a second, but even my visualization that I do every single night, I've been doing for over a year and a half now. And before that, I was doing another thing that I was visualizing for like 2 years. So it's one of those practices where we really need to dive in deep. When you're beginning, by the way, there's nothing wrong with changing your visualization at the beginning, but I would pick one thing and stick with it for the most part and live it in as much detail as you possibly can. Some things are smaller, right? Like the things that I visualize in my life, the image that I'm visualizing is a big thing, and it's going to take a long time, or it's going to be one of those things where it's kind of like the visualization itself is very complex. But if you're doing something more simple, which again, starting out, I would definitely pick something more simple, then you could do it for shorter periods of time. But one thing I do is every single night, I add more and more detail to the same visualization. Obviously, over a year, it's probably going to change. It's not going to be the same as when you started, but I think what's more important here is that you add more and more detail to the visualization that you're doing, and it takes practice. Visualization is a practice because it's one of those things where when you first start visualizing, your mind is going to wander. You're going to picture random stuff when you're visualizing as well, like random thoughts will pop in, and you might picture something that isn't in your visualization. If you're visualizing a limiting belief, your brain is going to jump in and tell you you can't do that. So your brain is going to fight against it. So it's kind of one of those things we have to work with, especially with our brain working against us, kind of. It just takes some practice. How and when? The best time to visualize is right before you go to sleep. I always take like 10 to 15 minutes every single night before I sleep to visualize. I don't set a timer or anything like that. This isn't like a timed meditation, although it is a meditation, and I usually fall asleep during the visualization as well. I have no real way to prove it, but I would say that for the most part, I'm kind of in the 15 to 20 minute range, so I think that it usually takes me about maybe 15, 20 minutes to fall asleep when I do the visualization, and this is perfectly fine. It is perfectly fine if you fall asleep. That's kind of like the whole point. Neville Goddard is a person who promoted kind of a very similar way of visualization and said that we visualize right before we fall asleep. It becomes part of our new mental program. And what we are trying to do here is we are trying to rewrite our mental software. And that's the most important point of this exercise, is that we are kind of picturing ourselves as we want to be, and we're changing that in our brain, and it kind of really gets into our subconscious, unconscious, whatever you want to call it, and then we become something more, and that's the whole point of the exercise. So today, I want you to try visualizing tonight. You can pick a limiting belief you want to overcome. You can visualize yourself accomplishing a goal that you have. It could be anything, and use the techniques from the other exercises I have here. For example, in one of the other exercises I talked about, we were writing a list, and I was talking about what would people do if you accomplish your goal. Would they congratulate you? So it's like maybe one night you visualize people congratulating you for the goal that you've accomplished. Maybe the next night you visualize accomplishment of the goal, and so on. And I know that I said you want to picture the same thing every single night, or you want to have a very similar visualization. You can have multiple parts to your visualization. It doesn't really matter. So, as long as you're kind of maybe picturing multiple steps, that's perfectly fine as well. I also say don't stop doing it, because you fall asleep every night, right? For the most part. And it's something that you can make a habit. So definitely turn this into a habit. But it's just that simple. Again, simple and life-changing. I promise you, if you do this for a month, you will see a difference. Guaranteed. So thank you for being here.